What's up, my dudes? We getting it back, baby. Let me make sure I'm even on the right track here. I'm pretty sure I am. This track is called PAX Track, made by Mr. Produce MX vs. ATV Reflex. Okay, so I know it's been a couple days since I've really got in here and made some motocross videos, kind of been doing some different kind of videos and taking a little bit of a break here, but we're getting it back going. I got some MX Simulator custom tracks on the way, got some song stuff on the way, been working pretty hard at trying to get all that a little more professional. So be looking out here in the near future, we'll have all that going. So got some really cool MX Simulator, one-of-a-kind Spencer Turley MX Simulator classic tracks going to be coming out. So got some cool stuff on the way on that. And I'm going to start live streaming some more. I got to get into that as soon as possible so I start doing it, instead of just like waking up and it's already nearly the end of 2020 and I haven't even live streamed yet. I need to start doing that really quickly, so be looking out for that too. But yeah, man, so Reflex is always a good time. It's funny how you can come in here, you could come in here 10 years from now and it's still going to be a good time coming back into Reflex, right? It truly is a timeless motocross game. It's kind of like how you can still go back and play Unleashed and have fun with it. Yeah, the physics aren't quite to like a modern day motocross physics level or whatever the case may be, but Unleashed is still a crap load of fun. Still got so much content to it. Got the track editor to it. That's another thing I was thinking about doing. Man, there's some tabletoppies going on here, boy. I like this jump design here. Really cool. Oh, look at that. That's a nice little triple. So this track really has like the whole track has a natural, very, very natural terrain feeling to it. I shouldn't have hucked that. Huck daddy. Big hoss lines out here. That's one of those you definitely want to get on the brakes. This whole track, you know, most time like a lot of custom Reflex tracks have almost like a overly smooth, overly flat type feeling to them, right? Well, this one really has like a gritty, realistic, very, very gritty, realistic, natural, almost like a little bit of roughness everywhere, a little bit of change of terrain everywhere, so it gives it a super realistic feeling on the actual on-track. He wasn't scared to go in there and put, you know, pre-made ruts going up jump faces and roughness up, like roughnessy kickered faces to the jumps and stuff, so really gives it a cool feel. I love to see when track makers come in here and they're not scared to try to make a little. This kind of reminds me of like my like Marsh SX track on MX Simulator and some of the tracks that I've really tried to make a little more like rough on the jump face and rough everywhere, you know. A lot of people, even if they go in there and make like a quote-unquote rough motocross track or like rutty motocross track, a lot of the times they just leave the jump faces and the landings perfectly smooth. You know, they won't go in there and actually adjust on the actual faces, so then therefore you don't really get that like super realistic kind of coming off of a varied terrain jump face, you know what I'm saying? So it's really cool to see that on this track right here. This is one of those where the on-track is really, really solid. Like the off-track is pretty generic, pretty basic Reflex, you know, off-track style, but this dude definitely, you can tell he put the effort in on the on-track side of it for sure. I like the dirt decal, kind of more that darker brownie mixy, but it's still, he's got a lot of variation to the different dirt decals on this track. He's got a lighter sand area. He's got even this part right here, it's darker, but it's also lighter in certain areas as well, which gives it a lot of variation, a lot of oh my God, gotta be a little careful right there, boys. It's got a lot of contrast, right? So it kind of gives you even more of a realism of the on dirt kind of look to everything. Awesome triples. You know, he's got roughness like as soon as you land. Roughness on the landing. You know what I mean? You don't see a whole lot of tracks with that, and kind of those little choppy, little baby micro choppy braking acceleration bumps up the jump face, right? That kind of cool vibe he's got going on here. So actually pretty impressed with this, man. When I first saw the little picture of it, I was like, probably should be one of those kind of average reflex tracks. You know, the off-track look pretty basic, look pretty generic, right? But now that I've gotten on the on-track, this puppy's pretty hossing. Got some inside ruts going on. I like this whole sort of vibe right here. I like this whole, as far as the on-track goes, right? Obviously, this is that, reflex special as far as the off-track, right? It's just kind of that super standard. You've seen these tree objects, bush objects, that standard reflexy woodland. I would almost compare it to like the woodland vibe of those DLC reflex motocross tracks, right? It's kind of got that like kind of sort of swampy but not really woodlandy type feel to it, which is you see this on literally probably 80% of custom reflex tracks out there. And yeah, it does give you like a somewhat of a real life-esque off track, but at the same time, I like to see, even if you're going to make a woodland design off track, make it a little different than all those 30,000 other of that same standard woodland. Like, there's so many different ways to make woodland, right? You've got so many different woodland vibes in real life, and even that's a problem that happens on MX Simulator custom tracks too. People go in there and make that same, it's like they'll use this very, very similar trees, very, very similar skybox, very, very similar bush object or grass decal or whatever, and then it gives all the woodland tracks kind of a very stale, repetitive sort of look, and it's no different with reflex, right? A lot of the reflex woodland tracks look very, very similar, right? So if it comes down to the on track here, I'll probably give this thing like man, he's got a really rough sand section right through here, but surprisingly it doesn't even feel that rough because it is sand, so that's kind of cool. A lot of roughness going through here. This is definitely a naturalistic, realistic, pre-made roughness, ruts pretty much everywhere. Very, 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 very terrain manipulated type track right here. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of hard to jump that jump all the way if you don't hit it from the outside there. So yeah, as far as the on track, I mean, you got multiple line options, multiple rut options. These jumps don't feel too small like what a lot of reflex tracks have in this game. They'll go in here and they'll try to make like a quote unquote realistic style track, but then they'll make their jumps like super small 1-to-1 scale, and then they're not even fun, right? Whereas this feels like the jumps are just that perfect little, they're almost like 20 to 25% bigger than they technically would be, 1-to-1 scale. It's like 25% bigger than 1-to-1 scale, right? So it gives you that little bit more jump fun factor because you are in an arcade motocross game. It's one thing if you're making 1-to-1 scaling tracks in a simulator because that's a little more comparable, but when you're in an arcade motocross game, you want to be very, very careful making, and so many people do that in this game. I don't know why they do that, but so many people make those 1-to-1 scale where it literally feels like you're barely even jumping off the ground, None of the jump faces really pop you up, so it's definitely refreshing to see a track like this. Feels more like a real reflex track, you know what I mean? Like, I could see a track like this being in the base version of reflex, whereas a lot of these tracks that these custom track makers make in this game that are like quote-unquote 1-to-1 scale, a lot of those tracks would have never even have been in the base version of reflex because reflex, Rainbow Studios, they know how to make the jumps fun, they know how to give it that little bit of extra oomph where the jumps have a little bit more skill gap, a little bit more fun factor because they know good and well that you're in an arcade motocross game. You're not in a simulator, right? I'm not saying you can never go in there and make a 1-to-1 scaling track. You just don't want the whole game the whole custom track community to only be making 1-to-1 scale tracks in an arcade motocross game, right? You want to be real careful of that, but it's got a nice combination of sand and that, more darker dirt style. It's got a cool little kind of red, murky water vibe going on. You can carry a whole lot of speed through there. A whole lot of speed, dog. Really fun track, though, dude. Got just enough little roughness, ruddy up the jump face, or it gets you that kind of skill gap where you don't really know if you can hold it wide open around the whole track. It's kind of a little bit tricky to do that, right? Versus, most reflex tracks where it's just wide open everywhere. You don't even have to think about what the hell you're doing. So it's pretty cool to see that. You can definitely tell he's tried to kind of block off your view of the off track with these bushes and trees and shit like right on the track, right? He's definitely tried to do that. But you can see over there in the off track, it just kind of fades into white. Just kind of very, very basic grass decal fading into white. So, but still not bad. I mean, it's definitely not bad. On track on this, I'm going to give this thing like a 9 overall. Off track, probably like right on the track, it's not bad, but it's once you start getting off the actual right by the track, right? Once you start getting that far off, what you're seeing off in the distance, that's where she starts to fade a little bit. I'd probably give the off track like a 6 overall. Uniqueness, this is actually pretty unique, man. I mean, you don't see, the biome is pretty basic, and a lot of the objects and stuff are pretty reused, reflex reused objects on so many other tracks out there, but the uniqueness of the on track definitely makes up for that, right? Because you don't see a whole lot of these like supernatural, hyper natural style, like rut up the jump face, roughness on the landing. You don't see a whole lot of tracks like that on reflex. So uniqueness, you're probably looking at like an 8 out of 10 or something like that. Fun factor, it's actually pretty fun, man. Jumps are decent sized, and what makes the jump, it's not like the jumps are unrealistic. That's not what I meant by how he was making them more than 1-to-1 scale. I don't mean they're unrealistic. I just mean they fit more in an arcade game's style of skill gap, right? Like, I don't care what anybody says, 1-to-1 scale tracks don't really fit the skill gap of an arcade motocross game. They don't. That's not what an arcade motocross game was made for, right? But you can make things that are still pretty in the realm of realistic, but they just have that little bitty, like 20% boost to the jumps, size-wise and everything, to give you that little bit of arcade, more arcadey motocross game style jump size and jump skill gap, right? So you're not just bored to absolute death falling asleep over the jump faces, right? And a lot of times when you get on those 1-to-1 scale tracks, you just fall asleep. So, and on top of that, he's got a little bit of roughness, a little bit of variation to the terrain on the jump face, so it gives it that even more, little bit more skill gap to it. So that definitely cranks her up the fun factor even more, because sometimes you come off the jump face and you kind of hit a little bit of roughness and it bounces you around on the jump face, makes it a little sketchy, or you kind of hit a little bit of a kicker on the jump face or whatever. It's like every time you come off a jump face, it's just a slightly different movement that the bike makes, so you have to be able to adjust to that, right? So it's really cool. So yeah, fun factor, probably give this thing like a 8 out of 10, something like that, 9 out of 10. Pretty fun track, man. Can't quite jump to that. And I do think this is actually a replica track as well. So, like replica of a local track or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I'd never really heard of that track before, but PAX track or whatever. But like right here, you can get on the brakes real tight, try to hug these insides. It's always fun when you got those multiple lines like that, multiple pre-made lines. God, I love me some pre-made in these motocross games, including MX Simulator. Oh wait, that game doesn't even have pre-made anymore. That's cute. Wonder why it's dying. Wonder why you can even fill up the gates, RF. Oh man. God. Barely even filling up the gates, RF. Barely, bruh. Barely. In the 450 RF class anyways, but either way, dog. Pretty solid little track right here. Thorough miserable thug, nasty fatties. But yeah, dog. Either way, go hit me up on Instagram at Spencer Turley, no spaces and no capital letters. DM me on there, and I will get you in my Discord. We've been getting on there playing Sim, playing Rocket League, playing PUBG, playing all kinds of crap on there, so yeah, if you want to get involved on that, potentially get on the team, just all you got to do is DM me on Insta, and I will get you in there. And, yeah, man, hope you boys enjoyed another little Reflex video. Had a good time. I really like this decal on this darker dirt part of the track. That is so cool. And then that little gray vibe right there on the low end part of it. Really, really cool visual look. high fidelity decals on here, right? Really, really nice. Oh, that jump is freaking awesome. That's where that jump, like, you got to have the speed coming out of the corner or you're not going to land it all the way, you know? You really got to, look at this little inside little shish kebab. That's pretty sick. Nice triple right here. If you come up short, you're going to lose some time, right? Got enough of a peak to the landing to it, right? Really nice, really fun track right here. Really good traction. Feels normal, feels natural. Roughness feels natural. See, this is somebody that knows what a real-life track feels like, right? You can tell he knows what that feels like. He knows what, like, roughness on a jump face feels like, right? This is very reminiscent to my, like I said, my Marsh SX tracks and some of my Reflex, or some of my sim tracks, my bad. Some of my MX sim tracks that I've really tried to make that hyper natural type feeling to it, right? So, either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, bros.